Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm really pleased to bring you 4 wines from the reserve or premium label of Blue Mountain Vineyards. And Blue Mountain Winery and Vineyards is one of my favorite BC wineries. I've done many videos on them, so I'm not going to go through the history of the winery. The only thing I'm going to do is going to correct the pronunciation of the owner's name. It's Mavidi. For some reason, I pronounced it Mavidi in previous videos. That's incorrect. So it's the Mavidi family who own this. And these wines, to me, they've done the right thing. They're a great family-owned winery in BC. They produce what they're good at. They don't produce everything. They're really good at their Pinot Noirs, their Chardonnays, and then some of their Pinot Blanc and Pinot Gris. But they stick to what they're good at, and they haven't really increased the prices very much. Their entry-level wines in white wines are around $20. Their entry-level Pinot Noir is under $30. And then over the last couple of years, they've now developed these reserve labels. So in this video, I'm going to go through their reserve Pinot Noirs, and then in a subsequent video, they've just released their Chardonnay reserve labels. And this has taken them years to do this. So this is not like they've been a great winery, a premium winery in BC for many years, but only when they're ready and they've got good product will they release these reserve products. And even when they do, it's not at a ridiculous price. So I really enjoy that. They could probably charge more, but they really want people to enjoy their wines. And it is a bit of a niche market or garage wine. People in the know, I think, really respect their wines. This is going to be an interesting wine review because they sent me 3 of their single vineyard wines, which is from Block 23, Block 14, and Block 9. And then also their Reserve Cuvee, which incorporates all 3. So it's kind of 3 different vineyard sites, and then we get to taste the kind of blend of them and kind of compare and contrast. So I think if you have the means, it's really interesting to do it this way. In total, so each of the kind of single vineyard reserve Pinot Noirs are $55 a bottle, and then the kind of blended reserve Cuvée is $45. So in total, around $200. You could have a nice party, and it's a really interesting thing because then you can kind of see how winemakers blend, and I will come to that conclusion at the end. So let's start with the Wild Terrain, which is Block 9, and this is the 2022 vintage. So just one thing about Blue Mountain wines in general, I find their Pinot Noirs quite minerally. Another word for minerally is salty. So I do see that, and if people don't like that, then you might not like these wines. So let's look at Wild Terrain. So Wild Terrain is basically, they call it the untamed sibling, which represents the most extreme and varied topography of the sites. So it's steep slopes exposed to wind and sun-drenched flatter plains over loamy sand. So you could say these are the most difficult terrains to grow in. So that's an interesting experiment in terms of, well, what happens? You think, if you are kind of think analytic about this, oh, bad soils and bad or difficult terrain makes the grapes work harder. So maybe it should produce better or more kind of complex wines. So let's see what happens. Now again, these are very young wines. I find with Blue Mountain wines, it usually takes around 5 to 8 years to really flush out and really relax. So these are just initial impressions of the wine. Wines will soften quite a bit and get that characteristic strawberry, cherry type flavors as they kind of age. So on the nose, this wine is actually, I smelled it a couple of times over the last day. It does continue to evolve. It's much softer than it was in the beginning. It does have that minerally note to it and a little black plums. But yes, the minerality is very evident on the nose. Yeah, so this wine, I find it, there is black fruit on this, black plums, blackberries. It does have a lot of minerality on the aftertaste. A little bit much for my liking. I would like to tone it down a little bit, so it might need to soften a little bit. I think it'll get better with age, and I think it'll bring out more of the red fruit, and again, that minerality will soften a little bit, and I think the aromatics will improve. But at this point, I would rate this wine 87 points. Let's go to the next wine, which is River Flow, which is called Block 23. And I'm not sure if I like the idea that they name it. I guess it's easier for people, but to kind of categorize them. But River Flow is a little bit misnamed in my opinion, because it really doesn't have to do with the river. They're not near the river, which would be kind of unusual. So anyways, the note on this one is it's planted in 1994. Block 23 is high ground from the sandy loam soil. So it's northern exposure, combined with the gentle east-facing slopes. So it's exposed to the cool morning sun and allowing the vines to gently develop undisturbed, creating the nature kind of the river flow. So I don't think the name River Flow kind of is quite right. It's kind of supposed to be more elegant, but there's no river involved here. So that's why I don't think it's quite right in my opinion. Actually, it kind of goes back and forth. Again, wines evolve so much over time. When I first smelled this wine, there wasn't a lot of aromatics on this. Now it's becoming much more mineral driven compared to the Wild Terrain. And I would say for the most of the first day of this, when I was drinking this, it was the other way around. So it's so opposite now. Oh, and you smell some floral components to this and some strawberry. So I can see where they say like this river flow. I can smell a little bit of the cool climate influence on this a little bit. So it is a softer, I can see why they call it river flow, I guess, because it does have that softer feeling as compared to Wild Terrain. So on the taste, you get much more black fruit, almost to a point where you get black plums and black olives. You get a little bit of licorice. And unfortunately, I'm not big on licorice, and then not as much minerality as compared to the Wild Terrain. And again, I think there's a little bit of tartness now, I feel, and good acidity on this wine. It continues to evolve, so it's hard to be too judgmental with these wines this quickly. Again, I think this needs a little bit of time. This probably needs less time than the Wild Terrain. I think that the Wild Terrain probably needs about 8 years. This needs another 5 years. And still my rating of this wine is 87 points at this point. Next wine is Gravel Forest, which is Block 14. This is the more westerly and southern exposure. Again, normally, typically, westerly and southern exposure is the best exposure because that's the most sunlight. That's where the sun rises, and so you get the most exposure. It creates a warm site with 33-year-old vines, a base of rocky gravel with loamy sand and more clay than other Blue Mountain vineyards. So let's have a smell and taste of this. So again, we're getting to get milder and milder and more towards what I like drinking. And again, it's all personal preference. Some people like a little bit more edginess. I like soft. And this has a nice smokiness to it. So I like that. And again, it's just personal preference. Some people don't like smoke. Some people like licorice. I personally don't like licorice. So this is it's just, I think it's more important, not my rating, but my descriptors are more important because you yourself will know what is your palate like. So I think this is a little bit more floral. I don't see as much minerality in the aroma. I see smoke. I see black fruit again, like black plums again and black berries. Yeah. So now I get some minerality, but not as overt. Wild Terrain to me was too much minerality. The river flow was a little bit soft for my palate. This one is more towards my palate. Because the minerality is dialed down, I can taste other things, like I can taste some spice, some black pepper on the aftertaste. So this is more towards my palate. It's a little bit softer. I think it's a little bit more delicate. So I'm gonna rate this 89 points. And the last wine we're gonna have is actually their Reserve Pinot Noir Cuvee, which is a blend of these 3 vineyard sites. So that's really interesting in terms of what happens when you blend all 3. So here, actually, the minerality is dialed down quite a bit, and I start to smell strawberries and cherries on this wine, along with some black fruit. The oak influence on these wines is very minimal. This is very balanced, and this is got a lot of vibrancy, a lot of acidity. I quite like this, and I like it because it's really easy to drink. I like it because I like acidity, high acidity. I like the red fruit that comes through in this wine. So I'm gonna rate this wine 90 points. And again, everyone has their own palate, but this is a really interesting experiment because a lot of times people do think single vineyard is better. I think single vineyard is more distinctive, but blends are usually quite well done because they get the best notes of these 3. But it's kind of funny because it's not like 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. It's kind of 1 + 1 + 1 = 6, because if you listen to my tasting notes of these 3 wines, that did not equate to what happened here. It's kind of somehow morphed into this wine. So that's just my personal preference. I think it's really interesting to buy these 3 wines, and it's also based on your personal preference. I'll let you know that I tasted with a number of people. Everyone enjoyed the Reserve Cuvée. I don't know if this is a thing, but a lot of the people that were females enjoyed the Wild Terrain. And a lot of males liked the Gravel Force. And in fact, in the descriptor on the back of the label of this wine, it does actually say that this is a more masculine wine. So we were laughing about that a bit in our group, saying what is a masculine wine, but it is peculiar that a lot of males did prefer this wine and a lot of females did prefer Wild Terrain. And most people in our tasting group, which comprised of both experienced and fairly beginner drinkers, thought the river flow was a little bit not as distinctive compared to these other 3 wines. So I hope this tasting has been valuable and interesting. I really enjoyed these wines. They're all exceptional wines. Again, most viewers and subscribers know I'm not a big BC wine cheerleader. I don't, just because I'm a BC resident, automatically like BC wines. I think they have to provide value and they have to be judged according to world standards. And I think Blue Mountain wines definitely meet those standards. $45 for a very good Pinot is, in my opinion, very reasonable. even $55 for a single vineyard Pinot, whether you like my tasting notes or agree with them or not, is pretty decent value in my opinion. So I think you should try this out. I would be interested if others had some views on these wines also. Hope you've enjoyed this. Hope it's been interesting in terms of the whole process. Until next time, happy drinking.